Wojcik?
Right. For anyone that was expecting me to come up here and savagely attack Mr. Weiss, I'm sorry to disappoint you. That's not going to happen. What I will say first of all is Mr. Weiss has invested in this community when at times when other people weren't willing to, and I think that one thing that you have to remember is that when projects don't go the way that they should, or maybe over time they don't hold up the way they should. I think that what you have to remember is Mr. Weiss is acting as a rational businessman and investor, and it's the people you should be really angry at to be the city council, because we're the ones that set the standards that have to be put in place. My issue with this whole thing is not necessarily on this particular project. It's the process that we're going through to do this. And now I ask you, there's the way that things have always been done in Rochester, and there's a way that I think maybe we need to do things in the future. And one question that I would ask you is, which is let's assume for a second that there is a need for some sort of subsidized workforce housing. Which is the better way to go about awarding a TIF district? You know, should a developer who has a long history with the city and has good personal connections with the city come forward and request a TIF district to put up a project of his choice? Or a city realizes that there's a need for public housing and puts out a request for proposals listing all viable, potentially interested parties. The interested parties are allowed to compete with their best proposal. The city evaluates the proposals based on predetermined criteria such as blight removal, location, quality architecture, desirability, long-term costs, and the support of neighbors. The best proposal receives the incentives. To me, I think that what the second option there is what we should have been doing for a long time. I think it's what we should do now. And I think that what happens is when you have certain people that will come forward and request a TIF district, it's discouraging to people who perhaps feel that they aren't going to get a fair shake. And I think we as a city need to set a playing field that is more level than that. With regards to, I've been calling it Washington Village 1, but I guess it would be Washington Village West. You know, I was when that discussion went on, I was sitting out there. That's one thing. Anytime people get really upset about something, there's always something that you can do. And the reason I opposed that project was not because I don't support workforce housing. I absolutely do. It's vital to the community. But rather because I thought the city was giving away a lot, and I think that we should have gotten a lot in return as a result of that. I have been an outspoken critic of the architecture of the building. It's not the worst building on earth by any means, but having prefab concrete and vinyl siding at eye level in a neighborhood community is not what I would do for design. I know for a fact that Mr. Weiss can create a beautiful building. All you need to do is walk down Broadway and you can see that. If we insist on that, that's the standard that's going to be in place. But we didn't do that for Washington Village 1, and I don't think it's financially viable to do that for Washington Village 2. That stated, there is this issue of crime, and as a person who deals a lot with statistics, I think it's there's certainly been there's been about a 19% increase in crime calls, and I think that everything that you would hope the manager of a building in place would do, I think Mr. Weiss and his company have done. I mean, I understand that there's still a need for the 24/7 security, but in terms of responding to a call and taking action against tenants when something goes wrong, you know, they have done that, and that's just one where I'm not really willing to pile on. But what I would say is responding to the crime and preventing it are two different things. And if I was to build a home in a floodplain and it flooded and the city came and cleaned it up real quickly, is it okay to build another home in the floodplain for the very same reason? I would say that's not the case. And I think that there's really something, the information that Renee brought up with the I'll use the crime prevention through environmental design. I think there's a lot to it. It's not a flowery subject. I think we can design neighborhoods to be safe neighborhoods. I am an outspoken supporter of mixed income development. I think that's the way you keep crime down in the long run. I hope that our developments going forward are all focused on mixed income. Even if a building within a bigger development is just focused on mixed income, the idea is to have it there. When I met with Mr. Weiss on Friday, I said that there are 5 things that I look for if you want me to contribute taxpayer dollars to something like this. There are 5 things that I want. I want it to be mixed income. I want it to be mixed use. I want it to be mixed ownership. When people have a vested ownership in their property, they take care of it. When it's all rentals, that it's all rentals. I want it to be walkable and transit oriented, and I want it to be I want quality aesthetics, and I also want quality construction. Now, some of these things Washington Village, the first building, does meet. I mean, the location is absolutely wonderful. It just needs to be designed to fit with the neighborhood. So, you know, as I'm going through these notes here, I think that Mr. Weiss is doing exactly, you know, what a businessman should be doing. And if this was entirely a private development, I think it might be something a little different. But this is, you know, we're talking about throwing in tax dollars. So let's figure out how we can get the best return on our investment we can. And where we have a neighborhood here who's, you know, very much opposed to this project going forward, we have neighborhoods that are crying out for redevelopment opportunities. And what we need to do is try and find a way to put these projects in some of these areas that really do need some redevelopment, not the least of which is some of the stuff in our downtown. So I think that there are better ways to do this. I hope in the future that the city is proactive in you know, soliciting, when we're going to give out a TIF district, let's do it fair, let's level the playing field, let's put a request out there for the best proposals. One of the great things that could happen is maybe 9 or 10 of our really small property owners and managers can get together and put together a package to do this as a team. I think it brings a lot more people into the game. I think it's fair to more people. So for a multitude of reasons, I'm inclined not to support this, but none of those reasons has to do with the fact that I think that Mr. Weiss can't do a good job, because I know he has done a good job many times.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Somebody?
I'll move denial.
All right, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Wojcik, second by Bilderback. Anything further? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries to deny. Unfortunately, the hearing's closed, Mr. Wise.
Well, I'm not talking about a hearing.
Mr. Atkins?
Council's call. It's your
All
meeting.
right.
Whether you want to
him to give a
further
closing
discussion.
statement?
I believe so.
All right, you can.
I think you folks lost sight of one thing. My good friend Sander Means wants to redesign the project. We can apply for a permit tomorrow and start next week building the project that's there. That project is approved. We spent $150,000 of legal fees to get it approved. So, you know, I don't know where you're coming from on that. We're not going to change the project. I don't know if you know more than, you know, maybe you got to go to work for Maxfield Research, because you seem to know more about them, about housing markets than they do. I mean, we spent $13,000 to have 2 market studies done, so. And then, I don't know, Mark, what, I can't remember what your problem was, but it didn't ring a bell with me. And Bruce, I don't know when you saw the plans that you know what we're going to build, because they were just done last Thursday. So what are you looking at?
I'm looking at you adding another 67 apartments that are going to.
47.
47.
You don't even know how many it is.
Let's
You
just-
do your homework?
All right, moving on to item E3,